Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1985 Toyota 4Runner SR5. Up front is a 2.4 liter inline 4, and down below is a 5-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here 4Runner for a couple of reasons. Mainly the fact that this is a unicorn year of the 4Runner. It is the second year of the 4Runner. However, it got the electronic fuel injection that the 1984 didn't get, but this was the last year of the solid front axle, making this technically a 1-year truck with those options together. So I'm excited to walk you guys through this truck today. But before we get on to anything else, I have a website, zackpradel.com, where you can buy stickers as well as other merchandise when it becomes available. You could also submit your own vehicle to be reviewed by me through a quick and easy submission form, and you could read my behind the scenes blog to see what I'm filming before it comes out on the channel. But let's get back to that 2.4 liter under the hood. Well, like I said, this is the first year for electronic fuel injection. The 1984, which was the very first year of the 4Runner you're seeing here, I have a full review of a 1984, that was a carbureted truck. And so there are some carbureted issues that come with that. In cold climates, it doesn't like to start that much and things like that. So this was the first year of the electronic fuel injection. This truck makes about 116 horsepower, which is 16 more than the outgoing 1984 carbureted engine. It is the 22RE, the E standing for the electronic fuel injection, where the previous year had just the 22R. The 22RE is a pretty good stout engine from Toyota. You get a lot of Toyota products in the 1980s with this engine, and so it seems to have withstood the test of time. I'm still driving it here today, over 30 years later. It's still kicking, coming up on 40 years later. And I really, really like that. Is this gonna wow someone at the Route 66 dragway at the next open event? No, it's not fast. This is not a fast truck, but it's a reliable one. It's not flashy, but it works. That might as well be Toyota's slogan in the 1980s and 90s. Like I said, paired to it, 5-speed manual transmission, and you guys have heard me praise Toyota's manual transmissions in almost every video I do. They drive exactly how you would think a manual car should drive. The clutch is light, but not too light. The shifter feel really clicks into gear, has a very solid, satisfying, and reassuring click into gear. And overall, just the driving experience is fantastic. I always tell people nothing drives like an 80s Toyota, although everything should, in my opinion. Last but not least, of course, this 4Runner is 4-wheel drive, and like I said, it has that solid front axle as well as, of course, solid rear axle, which this was the final year that was offered. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a bunch of gauges. On the left is my oil pressure and coolant temperature. Then I have my tachometer and speedometer in the center, and off to the right, I have my battery voltage and fuel. I love these gauges because Toyota, first of all, it's a very 80s truck. This is a very brown era of 80s. What I mean by brown era is the fact that the 1980s are kind of split into two halves. The first half, I really say up through 1985, was the brown era. This was a lot of leftover from the 70s. From 86 onward, you get the vaporwave, synthwave, what you tend to think of the 80s, the loud neon colors, things like that. Take a look at this Chevy Cavalier I reviewed from 1985. That is all you need to know about the brown era from the 1980s. And so what I love is that this gauge cluster, they put this like grid in the background for God knows why. It doesn't have any real purpose. You're not measuring out your gauges or anything like that. It's just a cool look from the 80s. And I love the fact that Toyota did that. Down below the gauges, I do have my cruise control on and off, and then a dead switch off to the left, which is kind of weird to see because this is the SR5, which was the top trim. On the steering wheel, just says Toyota. That's it, no airbag. Of course, this is pre-airbag, but I do have a horn. Off to the left, I do have my rear defrost on and off, and then on the door, I do have power windows. What's interesting is that the driver's window and passenger window are different shapes. So the passenger window kind of looks like a skateboard half pipe, while the driver's window has this big knob in order to help you flip it up and down. Very, very nice for quickly figuring out what button does what without spending too much time. Love that. Now, interestingly, down by my left kneecap and the hood latch, this is actually where you'll find the gas cap release. Pretty typical of this era to have locking gas caps, however, not in this location. Kind of interesting. Moving into the center, I do have an altimeter as well as some other off-roady gauges to tell you the tilt of the vehicle, which is really, really cool. These are fantastic off-road options and something that you also saw in Nissan pickup trucks of the same era over in Japan. I did this Datsun diesel that had a similar setup, and I love that. Then I get 2 climate control vents and the climate controls themselves down below. Now this was the SR5, so it did get air conditioning. However, it has since stopped working, unfortunately. But off to the right, I do have a quartz clock. If you're curious what quartz means, I do have a little video essay on my channel that I'll be linking on the screen right now to learn more about quartz clocks, a very 80s thing. Then down below that, we do have a cigarette lighter and ashtray. Again, more 80s things. We don't really see cigarette lighters in trucks or really vehicles anymore. Then we do have the power antenna up and down. Of course, this has since stopped working because it is an 80s car. I do have an aftermarket radio because most radios from the 80s either stopped working or were garbage and or a combination of both. Then we come down to the shifter. I do get a little cubby up in front of it, but the shifter itself, it's a little worn, but I love the feeling of it. It's the right height. It's not too tall. It's not too short. And I love the feeling of it. Down below that, we do get our 4-wheel drive settings for 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low, if you do want to put it into 4 low and really get your truck dirty. Then I do have 2 interesting switches down below. So I do have the rear wiper control. So there is a rear wiper, but also I have the button to roll up and down the rear window. So you're seeing behind me here, the rear window actually fully goes up and down, which is rare to see, especially in a pickup truck with a tailgate. Very, very interesting there, but that was definitely one of the cornerstones of the Toyota 4Runner. Then I do get a center console. With all that being said, unfortunately, the 85 4Runner does not have any cup holders, so it fails the big friggin' bottle test. And then we get the seats. Now these seats are incredibly rare. They were a factory option you could get on the SR5, and as you can see, it just says SR5 over and over and over again in this brown cloth. This is such a cool, interesting 80s quirk that you could get straight from Toyota. Now the owner has told me that these seats are really rare. If you're a Toyota fan, you can tell me in the comments. And that also he's never seen a pair of these seats in a non-restored truck. This truck is all original, so it is really cool to see that here in the 4Runner. But now let's hop in the second row of seats because that's what made the 4Runner so special. All right, so this is definitely not my favorite part of the 4Runner, especially because these sit so high up. It's, oh boy, is it not easy to get back here. Oh. All right. Once we're back here, it's actually really, really nice. Now this back here, this is what made the 4Runner so special. So back in the early 1980s, there was actually this sort of concept truck that a company built that was basically a Toyota pickup truck with a cap on the back and back seats. At the time, this configuration didn't exist for Toyota. And so they ended up actually contacting Winnebago to build caps like this for Toyota pickup trucks to build something new. That ended up being the 4Runner. So this was actually a Toyota pickup truck, which from the dashboard forward is indistinguishable from a regular Toyota pickup truck. They just added seats back here, they gave it some carpet, and actually an interior back here. And that's what made the 4Runner so dang special. The SR5 special seats carry on back here. They look fantastic. I love that. I do get lap belts back here. However, I don't actually get shoulder belts. Kind of interesting 80s thing. And then this cap can actually be taken off with a bunch of 12mm screws, and this whole top comes off like a Bronco or Jeep or other vehicles like that, which added to the overall really fun experience of the 4Runner. Now, something interesting is that this bed cap could be paint matched to the rest of the truck. So you could get this in red, blue, black, white, whatever truck you ordered. However, that was new for 1985. The 1984s only came in white or black no matter what color of truck you got. Kind of interesting fact there of this little bed cap. But the seats back here are very comfortable. I also do get my own climate controls down here for fan speed and off or warm. So I only get heat, but I do get it back here. And I do have a little ashtray I can fold out as well. let's go hop around back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, so we're on the back of the Toyota 4Runner, and as you can see, the rear window is already down, so you can look in here. Not too much. You do get a little bit of storage. You do get this big roll bar going across, and you do get a little light down here. It's kind of cool. So I can pull this lock up, and then I can actually pull this tailgate down. And although the rear glass is actually inside of there, I can still use this as a tailgate. I personally would be very gentle with it. You don't have to be, but I just would. And so you actually get the functionality of a normal pickup truck bed back here. However, the rear window's inside of here. I think that that is incredibly cool, and that is like the party piece of the Toyota 4Runner. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I love the look of this truck. This is really what drove me to reviewing this particular 4Runner, is this paint scheme. Now, I'm not totally sure of the history of this paint scheme, if it was a dealer option or painted later by a previous owner. I believe it was a dealer option. They got the truck as white and then sent it out to whatever local shop to do the exterior. I believe that's the story. Whatever it might be, I love the look of it. Very brown era 80s. I can't get over how cool this truck looks. And so, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think finally driving a 1985 Toyota 4Runner? Well, I think this thing is incredibly cool and just such a macho showing of trucks in the 1980s. Not only is this peak brown era like I keep mentioning, but I just love how rugged and straight to the point this thing is. The only access thing I can really see in here is the air conditioning and the grid on the gauges. I think it's so funny that they put a grid on the gauges. I don't know why. I find that hilarious. It's just such an added thing that they didn't need to. But everything else in here has a function. It has a purpose. This truck wasn't meant to be a comfortable cruiser. It wasn't meant to be this nice, quiet daily driver. This is a vehicle that you can put your friends in the back of and you can take down a trail. You can cover some harsher terrain than you would find in the equivalent year Corolla or Camry or other vehicles like that. This was a useful utility truck, and that's unfortunately why you see a lot of them off the road. I guess you actually don't see them because they're gone. And sure, this has its blemishes. No truck from this era is perfect, but it's still around, it's still kicking it, and it's still doing the job with over 256,000 miles on it. That is what I love about Toyota. Are Toyota's showstoppers? No, but they're consistent. They're reliable, and they're not timeless in the sense of styling, but they're timeless in terms of function. This truck back in 1985, like I said, was meant for you to take your friends around and go down a trail. Well, here in 2022, this truck can be loaded up with your friends to take down a trail. That purpose hasn't changed. Dissimilarly to like 50s cars, like that Bel Air that I drove last year, that 57 Bel Air, that was a family car when it first came out, but now it's a collector's piece. It's a Sunday drive car. It's one that you don't drive too often. That car's purpose has changed. And that's fine. That's going to happen to 99% of cars, but not this one. This is still doing what it was meant to do almost 40 years later. And that is admirable, to say the least. You don't have to love the 4Runner, but you gotta respect it. In my book, you just have to. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Keegan for letting me take out his Toyota 4Runner from 1985. This thing is just so flippin' cool. As soon as I saw a photo of it, I said, I have to drive that thing. And that is exactly what we've done. Keegan has been absolutely awesome to work with, and I hope to work together again in the future. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.